Hello, everyone. Welcome to another soulful sip contemplation. Before we start, as usual, I would like to invite you to grab one of your favorite drinks, tea or coffee, and join me for this contemplation about one of my favorite books, When Nietzsche Wept by Irvin Yalom. Well, I was not a fiction reader till recently, but interestingly, this book, which is a fiction book, has always been at the top of my highly recommended books list. And there are many reasons for that. And maybe one of the most important reasons is the fact that it is a beautiful dance of two of my favorite disciplines that I like learning about. It's a beautiful dance of philosophy and psychology coming together in an easy to read, fascinating historical fiction context. For the ones who are not familiar with the author, Irvin Yalom is a very well known, worldwide famous American psychiatry professor from Stanford. And definitely in the book, you can see and identify many different things about psychoanalysis, talk therapy, and learn a little bit more about human soul and what it means to be a human. On the other side, for the ones who are not familiar with Nietzsche and his life philosophy, this is also a nice way of becoming familiar with some of Nietzsche's life principles and his life philosophy. When I was reading the book, I didn't know the fact that when Irvin Yalom was writing the book, he was actually influenced by his wife, who is also another scholar and author. And at the time, she was researching Nietzsche. So there are actually quite a lot of educational elements in this book. So by reading an easy to read, fun fictional book, you can learn a lot about psychology, the birth of talk therapy, and you can become familiar with some of Nietzsche's deep philosophy about life, death, and everything in between. Well, I can imagine that not everyone who is listening had the opportunity to read the book, so I will try not to spoil it too much. But of course, I want you to get a sense of what you might find in it. So I will briefly talk about what you might find in it and what the story is about. Then I will briefly mention what are some of the gifts that I received from the book. And also, I would like to invite you to read it in your own terms. Well, the book starts with a conversation between Lau Salome, who is a dear friend of Nietzsche. She is concerned about Nietzsche's life because Nietzsche has very serious migraines, and because he's having so serious health issues, she is concerned that he might suicide. And this might be the end of a beautiful future for him because he is one of the emerging philosophers of the world. She doesn't want her friend to die. And with that desperation, she's reaching out to one of the worldwide famous doctors, Dr. Brouwer, saying that you are the only one who can save this beautiful mind, do something. But she also highlights the fact that Nietzsche might not be very open to treatment. He has some pride, so they need to find some creative ways of convincing Nietzsche to be a part of this treatment therapy. And in the rest of the book, Brouwer, Salome, and Nietzsche gets into different sort of engagements, and Brouwer finds an interesting way to loop Nietzsche into treatment. While Brouwer is supposed to treat Nietzsche's physical conditions, Nietzsche proposes to help him with talk therapy so Brouwer can also address some of his concerns. And at the time, they start with a common shared problem of obsession about women. And during their calls and conversations, things start evolving. And in that beautiful dance, we learn more about Nietzsche's life philosophy. We learn more about the depth of psychoanalysis and how it really helps us to understand each other, to see the depths of human soul. What was interesting to see was the fact that although both of them shared some common human problems, in this case, obsession for women in different shape or form, it was also quite fascinating to see how their worldviews differed so much when they started their journeys. And through the talk therapy, through getting to know each other, during these regular encounters, they started seeing each other and they started understanding each other's point of views. And it turned out to be a beautiful friendship where they ended up at different points. And like I said, I'm not going to spoil the book so much, but the patient turned out to be the teacher turns out to be the patient, or the physician turned out to be the patient. The relationships just beautifully reverse. And they teach each other beautiful things about what it means to be a human. And through their story, we understand how common our pain points are and what it means to be a human. There are so many themes that are discussed in the book. It's about friendship, it's about love, it's about trauma, it's about obsession, it's about different life philosophies, it's about seeing each other's souls, it's about authenticity, finding ourselves. It's about being ourselves as we are in the world and creating our own worlds in our own terms. And of course, the message that you take or the message that you see very much depends on from which angle you look at the book. What really made this book very special personally for me was the timing of my engagement with it. So when I first read the book, and I read this multiple times, but our first encounter is the most special one, it came into my life at a critical decision-making point in my life where I was about to change the trajectory of my life in a big way. And I would admit, I was having a tough time to really understand what I want. And although I've gone through quite a lot of introspection myself, I even tried coaching and consulting my loved ones, it was still not an easy decision. And I was taking my time to really listen to myself and engage with the world in a way that I can get signals to really understand what deeply resonates with me. And of course, in that mindset, I didn't particularly select the book, but this was the one that I was reading. And what deeply resonated with me was a brief conversation between Dr. Brower and his wife. He was saying that he needs to go and he needs to make sure that all the choices he has made in his life actually belongs to him, because he was not so sure whether he made these choices because of society, because of training, because of the conditions that he was born into. And he needed to first discover himself to be able to know the world, know himself, and find his position in the world accordingly. And yeah, that was the answer that I needed. At that particular stage, one of the options enabled me to know the world better, know myself through immersing myself in the world, experiencing the world. So at least I can be more sure about who I am and what my role and position and value and service in the world could be. So by reading this book, I was able to confirm a critical decision in my life, and I was able to make that decision with more inner authenticity, inner confidence. Until that time, I'm not so sure whether I looked at books in this intuitive way, but the way that it came into my life at that particular time and the strength of its message and how it really hit me when I was reading the book, is still something that I remember very vividly. Sometimes this is one of the gifts of the books. Once we have enough openness to give them this space, sometimes they can give us answers for the questions that we are keeping in our hearts. And especially in today's world, we are so much used to reading books very practically. Like, I want to get something out of it, so I'm going to select this particular thing to learn something from it. Of course, there's nothing wrong with that, but there might be other alternative things. If a book arrives to your life through a recommendation, through a very random interaction, maybe it is supposed to come into your life at that particular time to give you a message. And to be able to receive that message, we need to keep that openness, and we need to give the books a little bit more space. To me, this is another thing that we're obsessed with. There are so many books about how to read fast. Why don't we think about the opposite? How to read slow, how to digest, how to integrate, how to contemplate with books. I always say that life is a mirror. Through the mirror of our engagement within the world, through the mirrors of our relationships, through the mirrors of our engagement with whatever we do in life, in this case, this could be even reading books, we can learn a lot about the world, a lot about ourselves. All we need is the openness and space and time for that reflective energy to give the gifts back to us. Well, like I said, this book has always been a symbol for authenticity, for finding my own voice and making sure that I am making choices according to my own principles, not according to external reasons or what the society expects me to do. This was just one of the messages that was briefly mentioned in the book that deeply resonated with me at the time. You can find many more about love, about friendship, about what it means to heal, about what it means to be a human. The most important thing is staying open for that wisdom to touch us. Especially if you're not familiar with psychotherapy and if you're not familiar with Nietzsche's philosophy, this might be an easy, fun, entertaining way to get to know more about these important topics, and this important synthesis can give you an idea about what it means to be human. So, thank you for listening. I hope you give this book a chance. And if you have the opportunity to read it, I would love to engage with you too. I would love to learn what deeply resonated with you. So please join me in the comments. And if you're also into common themes of philosophy and psychology, personal development, please share your favorite books too. To me, this is the beauty of humanity. We are all different. And through those differences, once we have eyes to see, we can learn from each other. And that is the beauty of life. Till next time, remember that you are beautiful, connect to that inner beauty, and create more of it externally. And of course, don't forget to read books slowly, and don't forget to integrate their wisdom into your life. See you next time. Thank you all.